Hello and welcome everybody. Today I'm gonna talk a little bit about the core set rotation. I want to give my opinion on what cards I would add. I've been thinking about this quite a lot and I've chosen 2 cards from every class that I would add to the core set. Now what are the rules? We need some ground rules for the cards. So first of all, I don't want any cards in the core set that doesn't have any text. And I say that because it's very easy to just say, well, Chillwind Yeti, for example, is a very basic card that's very good for the core set technically because it's easy to understand what's going on, but that's also just too easy, you know what I mean? So I chose to exclude anything that doesn't have a text. And then I also said preferably no cards that only support a singular archetype, because you want the core set to be the core of the class and not specific archetypes within that class. The third one is that cards will have to be easy to understand. It's the core, so new players are going to have these cards, and for the most part I want them to be understandable for new players. Let's get going. First off, we have Death Knight. I don't think you should change much about Death Knight just because there's not that many cards. So at the end of the day, is there any problematic ones? Not really. I mean, Triple Frost, can be problematic, but what do you take out? It's gonna stay in standard anyway. You don't really change anything by adding or subtracting anything from Death Knight. So I said don't touch Death Knight, don't do anything. Then we have Demon Hunter. For Demon Hunter, I have chosen Flanking Maneuver and Star Student Stelina. I've chosen Flanking Maneuver because I think it's a very good card that doesn't break the class at all. It's one of those cards that I feel like is pretty core to the Demon Hunter class identity. Summon dudes with Rush, because they have a lot of summon 1/1s with Rush, stuff like that. This one summons a 4/2 with Rush, and if it dies, you summon another one. Star Student Stelina I chose because it is a form of disruption that doesn't disrupt the opponent too much, but it does it just enough where I think this is great to have. Then we have Druid. I chose Planted Evidence because I think that's actually a really good form of mana cheat. People talk about all the time how mana cheat is a bad thing for Hearthstone, and I think generally speaking it is, but I think Planted Evidence is one of those cards where it's okay. And then for the second card for Druid, I chose Plaguemaw the Rhotic. Now, this is an archetype specific one, right? But taunt is a pretty common keyword, and I think this is a way to give players something they can build around without it being too specific. I think taunt's on the line, but it's not so specific that you can't put it in there. I think it's okay to put Plaguemaw in. Taunt is not that specific. Most decks can run some taunt minions, so I would say this one is fine to do, although it is bordering the idea of supporting a specific archetype. Next up we have Hunter. First up, I would add K9 Why? Because honestly, I miss good old Face Hunter list. It was the face of Hearthstone, Not really, but it was such an iconic deck back in the day. I would like to have that back, and I think K9 would be such a cool addition to it. And then we have the Red King. I just think the Red King is really cool. I don't know, I don't really have any reason for it other than I just think it seems cool to have. It's a really cool effect, it's very interesting, and it gives Hunter a reason to fight for the board, which I think is interesting enough. For Mage, I chose Primordial Glyph and Toki Time Tinker. Primordial Glyph is a card that I thought was really cool. You can say, oh, it's mana cheat. It kind of is, but you do pay the 2 mana for it and play the spell later for 2 mana discount, but you still paid the same amount of mana. I think this is again a fair form of mana cheating, so I would like to have that added. And then we have Toki Time Tinker. This is just a fun card. Battlecry at a random legendary minion from the past to your hand. I don't think it's a great card, power level wise, but it's a fun card. It's something that I could see new players be excited about, and that's why I would add it. And we have Paladin. I want Call to Arms back. I miss this card quite a bit. It's one of the few recruit cards I actually liked. Again, I just kind of miss the board-based aggro decks. I mean, Death Knight is cool, right? We've had the Unholy Death Knight deck that was really good first, and then the mini set came out, then Frost Death Knight with aggro cards became really good. I want other classes to play aggro as well, and I wish Death Knight wasn't aggro, at least not got all of the runes. Then we have Grime Street Protector. This is one of those control cards that I always found good. Like, just a generically good card. And I think it's a fair and balanced card. Then we have Priest. The first card I chose is Cleric of Anshi. And I chose that one because I think the if you've restored health this turn is an interesting effect. And it really encompasses what Priest does. And then I also put Plague of Death here because I think it's just a generically good AoE spell. Silence and destroy all minions. I like having that around just in case you need it, you know? For Rogue, we have Field Contact. After you play a Battlecry combo card, draw a card. Now, I know, this is a lot of card draw. You might not want to introduce both of these cards at the same time. I like Field Contact. I think it's a good card. You might need to put it at 4 mana, but I think it's okay to bring that one into the core set. Same thing with Elven Minstrel. Draw 2 minions from your deck is fine. Honestly, I kind of just miss Tempo Rogue. That's why I put Elven Minstrel in here. Alright, on to Shaman. First off, we have Elemental Destruction. This is a 3 mana, deal 4 to 5 damage to all minions. Now, I would change this card. I'll say it right away. I would change it to either deal 5 damage and then overload for like 3 maybe, or deal 4 damage, overload 1 or 2. Because this is basically Hellfire. It doesn't do face damage, but it's whatever. It's basically Hellfire with overload 5. That's way too much overload. But I like the effect of it. I like that it's just like damage to all the minions, not just your enemies. And I would change the whole like 4 to 5 thing because it gives me the vibe of old Lightning Storm. I hated old Lightning Storm, so I would change this. And then, unpopular opinion, I would bring Shudderwalk back. Now, I know, a lot of you out there are gonna be like, oh, no, we're traumatized by this card. Yes, I know, I get it. But the card itself is so cool. I don't really know what to say about Shudderwalk other than I think it's just so cool. Like, yes, I get it. I understand. I played when Shudderwalk was a thing. I know the feeling of being traumatized by this guy. We've all heard his voice lines way too many times. I get it. But they just need to make sure that the core set doesn't have the, like, full combo package with him. And then we're good. It's insanely cool. Then we have Warlock. And I cheated a tiny bit on Warlock here. Let me explain myself. I was gonna do only 2 cards for every class, right? But the thing is, Cobalt Librarian is just a good card, right? That's like the generically good card here. Lord Godfrey and Defile are basically the same card, except like 2 damage, 1 damage, you know. They're just amazingly designed cards. Like, who doesn't love Defile? The amount of YouTube highlights with Defile alone, insane. I love it. Defile is one of my favorite cards of all time. Defile is just one of the best designed cards of all time, and you can't really argue against it. Lord Godfrey has the same thing. It's a little less cool, but I like him anyway. And Renounced Darkness, I'm gonna be honest, it's here for the memes. I love Renounced Darkness. I think it's such a fun card. I would completely understand if Blizzard doesn't bring that one into the core, but I would like it. Then we have Warrior. Again, Explore and Goro is just a meme card, so it's in the middle. They probably wouldn't bring it back, but I put it here because I like the card a lot. I think it's fun. I think it's a fun and interesting card to play with. Then we have Dragon Roar. I think Dragon Warrior was one of the more interesting archetypes we've seen in Warrior. You could argue this card is a bit too heavy into an archetype, but I don't think it is, because depending on what dragons you put in the core set, this card could be pretty good or it could be pretty bad. It depends, right? But you can always get like some big dragon from this. So this could be a way of getting a win condition that you don't have. And then we have Reckless Flurry, which is just amazing. I think it's great to have a way to just spend all your armor to do things, or just spend armor to do stuff. And I think Warrior should be the class that does this. I know Druid has a little bit of spend armor to play minions now, but yeah, does that in flavor for Druid? I mean, that's up in the air. That might be a video for a different day, how classes are like losing their identity. But yeah, I like Reckless Flurry a lot. I think it's a great designed card, so I would bring that one back. Now we're on to neutrals. First of all, my baby Prince Keleseth. Please, Blizzard, if you can bring one card from this list back, I would choose Keleseth over anything else. I think Keleseth is such a cool card. I miss him. He's not gonna be that good today. Let's be honest, Keleseth decks are probably out and probably won't really come back, but please, Blizzard. It was so much fun to play Keleseth Rogue back in the day. This is completely personal bias towards Keleseth that I put him here. And then we have Grizzled Wizard. Now, this card is just really interesting. I don't know, like, this is one of those cards that I just find fun, right? It's interesting, and it's kind of the same with the Purifier. It's interesting cards. Yes, they have slightly weirder effects than most of the other cards on this list. I know that. But I really really just like these effects. They're cool, they're interesting. Then we have Whizbang. Again, this is one that I think Blizzard should 100% bring back. Whizbang is awesome. He's so much fun to play with. And now that they're moving over more in the free-to-play realm with the whole core set rotation and stuff, I feel like Whizbang is not the biggest deal, you know? If you don't know what Whizbang does, you put him in your deck and he just becomes your deck, essentially. And then you start out with one of the pre-made decks that Blizzard has made. Whenever you build a new deck, there's 3 pre-made decks that pop up. Whizbang will give you one of all of the decks that can give you. That's one where I know a lot of people really want that one, and I agree with them. I think Whizbang's great. He really is the wonderful. Then we have Maiev Shadow Song. I like this card because it is a type of neutral removal that makes a lot of sense to just have. I like having removal that can be used by any class, but it's not amazing removal, right? That's what this is, and I think Maiev is actually a very good design. Then we have Clockwork Automaton. This is maybe a bit of a controversial one, but I actually think it's an interesting enough effect that it would be cool to have it back in the core. Would it see a lot of play? Probably not. There's definitely, I think, room to have just cards that are interesting, and this is one of them. Then we have Smug Senior. It's just a generic good card, and I think it's one of those cards that I just enjoy. You get 2 6-mana 5/7 taunts, right? I like the idea of it. I think it's simple, and that's what you want in the core set. Spammy Arcanist is basically just a Defile on a stick. Again, get all the Defiles back. Please give us all the Defiles. And then we have Bone Mare, which that might be again a bit controversial, but I like Bone Mare a lot. You could arguably put it as a top end in your tempo deck. Now, it was more of an arena card, but I just think this is an interesting effect. It's interesting but simple. It's just a simple effect that I could very easily see as part of the core set. Then we have Primordial Protector. I think this card is just interesting. It can be dangerous to have specific card draw, but I think with this it's fine. I always kind of like this card. Then we have Wrapped Golem. This is also one of those where I think it's just interesting enough, but still pretty basic. And Scrapyard Colossus is just a big finisher guy. Again, just a card that I think would fit the core set really well. And that's about it. So thank you so much for watching, and look forward to the next video where I will be talking about cards that I don't want to see in the core set. Have a wonderful day.